Well, welcome, cast and crew of American Gods. Very excited, long road to get here. How are you feeling?
We're in San Diego. There's so much passion and love here. It's wonderful.
Well, I actually read, Neil, that you wrote the book on a train to San Diego.
I started
It was
the
a
book.
long train.
I didn't write the whole book. It was the book was about 2 years in the writing. But I did. I started it on. What I used to do was when I come to San Diego, because San Diego is so mad. The only thing that I would ever ask the San Diego people for is, will you bring me in by train and let me leave by train? So I would have downtime coming here and decompressing time. And I wrote the first chapter on a train to San Diego in 1999, I think.
Was it actually to Comic-Con? Were you coming to Comic-Con?
Yeah, I was coming to Comic-Con.
Oh my goodness.
I'm really old, and I've been doing this for so long.
What does it feel like having, a physical representation of your fantastic world manifested right here?
It feels amazing. It feels quite wonderful. It feels slightly scary. The idea that I could write a huge, thick book that for at least 10 years just seemed to baffle people. And then we're in this glorious, brave new world of adventurous, interesting, giant TV. And suddenly, the fact that it was too big and too weird and contained too much ever to be a movie went from being a terrible thing to being a glorious thing.
Take your bug, make it a feature.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we also have two of the show's big stars, Ricky Whittle playing Shadow Moon and Ian McShane playing Mr. Wednesday. Yeah. What was it like?
Cue
what was the
applause.
casting process for you guys and for the creators? I mean, was it difficult? I feel like there's a lot of fan expectations for who these guys are.
I think the casting process began when the book was published, because if you go online, there have been so many fan casting sites, and what was a thrill for us is when we announced Ian McShane, everybody said perfect, and when we announced Ricky Whittle, everybody said perfect. And because the cast is so multicultural and from different cultural backgrounds, different ethnicities, that it gave us a wonderful opportunity to represent the world.
And how was it like for you?
I mean, my own casting process was huge. It's unlike anything I've ever been through. But I just want to say quickly that my mum, a week before Ian McShane was actually cast, actually called it and said, it'd be fantastic for Wednesday, Ian McShane.
And
So she called it, and so she called Michael and Brian, and they said, "Well."
She tweeted us.
Yeah, she tweeted. She's very vocal. His mum. So she actually called it before. She just pulled the name out of nowhere, and as soon as she said it, I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic!" And then these guys, cast him, and I've literally had an absolute whirlwind. I mean, I've met one of my idols here. Four of my idols, really. I mean, it's these incredible minds that I get to play with and work with every day. And I really do feel very blessed and honored to be a part of this. My process for auditions, I actually learned about this project at San Diego Comic-Con last year. It was actually a journalist who said, your name's popping up on a lot of fan castings. It was Casting Shadow, I believe they were calling it, hashtag Casting Shadow. And my name kept popping up, and she said, you should look into that. And I was like, maybe I will. And I did, because I got a little bit excited. But yeah, it was I think it was about 5 months of auditioning and going through various scenes and manipulations, because the book, Shadow's very stoic. He's very internal monologue, and it's hard to translate that to screen. We have to kind of make it a little bit more vibrant for the small screen, and so you kind of had to adapt to it, and I had to kind of try and drag myself away from Neil's shadow, although keeping those influences, and then kind of filtering in the color that Brian and Michael want to add to the character. So it's been a long process, and I'm still learning and having a great time, and learning from working alongside Ian McShane, one of my heroes growing up, Mr. Lovejoy over here. It's a fantastic experience, and I think you're going to see the fun that I'm having on set on screen.
And Mr. McShane, how did this come across? How did this come across your plate? Was it anything to do with your relationship with Michael and Kings?
Oh.
Well, casting processes they're their own thing. I mean, who knows what went on? All I know is that sometimes, the part that you're meant to play, it does happen. And when I read it, when it came through from Michael and Brian, yeah, it was fantastic. Mr. Wednesday's great. I think there's an inbuilt thing between me and Ricky too, because we're from the same part of the world in England. We support the same football team. We have a background which is similar. I'm from a working class town, near Manchester, both of us. And so that was sort of an instant thing that we found together. And our deep love of football, which of course is not in the script, but thank God it's not in the script because it's everywhere else. But no, it's very funny because that binds us. And Ricky, Ricky's got to carry the show basically. I mean, he's in every episode. But I sort of, it's an odd relationship. I mean, it's great actually.
One of
I
the
finally stopped insulting in it. I think in episode 3, don't I? I finally stopped
Finally say
insulting
something
Shadow
nice about
Moon.
him,
Eventually,
He was getting very insecure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of the fun things for us about the casting process, because we looked at these characters and they were all so vibrant, and we were originally imagining Ian playing Chernabog, and we reached out to him, and he was like, I think Wednesday's a better role, and we were like, why didn't we think of that?
Sometimes the best ideas come from your actors. A lot of it comes from watching these two together. We had two great actors we were so excited to see play, but it was watching them play together that we suddenly knew we had a show, that these two were a romance we wanted to watch blossom.
No, it's a real trip. I mean, when you got the other actors too. I mean, you've got Crispin Glover, Mr. World. You've got Gillian Anderson. Got your TB playing Bilquis. You've got, and it's pretty out there TV. This, I mean, it's not your normal TV. Alongside Mr. Fuller's well known for that, yeah. But alongside his whimsy and the sexual nature of the project makes it a really interesting view. I think, don't you know what I mean, Brian? It really is. It's different. I've not read anything like it.
I just realized I was holding the microphone.
I know.
And it's slowly rising.
It all tied in very nicely.
Well, locations are so important to the book too. I mean, did you guys get to include any of the iconic locations that you wrote about in this, and did you get to shoot there?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we've been to Oklahoma.
We are heading to the House on the Rock, but
Have
that'll
you shot
be
there?
not yet. That's
Not
going to
yet.
be September, October.
Wow.
But people at the House on the Rock are really excited that we're coming, and Brian and I actually, I think, are part of the smallest society of people in the world, because we have actually ridden on the largest carousel in the world at the House on the Rock, which you're not allowed to do, but we both have.
Well, your characters have to do it in the book, though. Are they going to let them?
That'll change in October. They're so fantastic. These people at House on the Rock. The book means so much to them and has introduced so many readers to the House on the Rock. And if you haven't been, it is the most magical place on this continent.
I believe the first time I met Neil and spoke with Neil, and you actually told me that you toned down House on the Rock because you believed people would think it was too insane and too...
I wound up taking about 3 pages out of the House on the Rock sequence when I wrote it, just because I went, this is overkill. People won't believe this. So I left out, the 110-person orchestra of automatons playing out-of-tune musical instruments, and I left out a bunch of weird stuff toward the end. But you've still got... Everything in the House on the Rock is unbelievable. People assume I've made it up, and then some of them Google it, and those who Google it very often wind up going and walking around going, and then they get in touch and they say, you underplayed it. I say, yes, I know.
You guys will have to have the rap party there.
I think we're having some sort of party.
Isn't that where we go in Wisconsin in late September? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that is the plan.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I couldn't speak more, but everyone's really excited about
We're
American
not
Gods.
leaving.
Thank
We're
you.
not leaving. We're here all day. This is actually nice. The AC is good. You've got candy and things.
We do have candy,
So tell
yeah.
me about you.
Please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
very much.